Hi, everyone, and welcome to Procter & Gamble Professionals webinar, Elevate Your Business from Good to Great. My name is Molly Crable, and I will be the moderator for today's presentation. Procter & Gamble Professional is the away-from-home division of Procter & Gamble, serving the food service, long-term care, healthcare, hospitality, building cleaning, and maintenance industries. Just like our parent company, we are committed to providing innovative products that make life better for our customers and their patrons. At P&G Professional, we know that every experience counts, from how happy your customers are to the products you use to the safety of your employees. With over 175 years of experience in consumer understanding and product innovation, we purposely engineer our programs to deliver a great experience. For today's webinar, we are pleased to welcome David Frank, President of the American Institute for Cleaning Sciences, John Carroll, Manager of Business Outreach at Yelp, Nicole Giarango, Category Marketing Manager at Quill.com, and Patricia Lynn, Account Executive with Procter & Gamble. As a reminder, you can submit questions at any time during today's presentation by using the Q&A tool on the right side of your screen. We'll do our best to address as many of your questions as possible at the end of today's session. If we're unable to respond to your question live today, they will be gathered and addressed offline. During today's presentation, our objectives are to gain valuable insights into your customers' perception of clean, discover how creating a clean environment can drive customer loyalty and revenue, and learn how to handle reviews, both good and bad. And now I'd like to introduce our speakers who are experts on this topic. Dave Frank is President of the American Institute for Cleaning Sciences, or AICS. With more than 40 years of experience, Dave is a leading authority serving facility service providers, distributors, and manufacturers, and is an active member and frequent speaker for ISSA, APPA, EPA, and the U.S. Green Building Council. John Carroll is the Manager of Business Outreach at Yelp. To educate independent business owners across North America on best practices for navigating the world of online reviews, John works with local business owners interested in utilizing Yelp to grow their business through education sessions, webinars, Yelp's blog for business owners, and acting as a liaison between the small business community and different divisions within Yelp. I'll now hand things over to Dave Frank to get us started on today's presentation.
Thank you, Molly. We're going to be talking about the core components of how we get to the right type of outcome. And there's lots of different perceptions that we have of cleaning, that customers have of cleaning, whether it's building occupants or whether it's visitors. And so the perception of cleaning may be a reference point that's based on a particular individual. But our industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry of chemical manufacturers, paper product manufacturers, the manufacturers of specific equipment. And so when we talk about the value of it, we have information, documentation, statistical data, survey data that represents the things that need to be done to come up with the right type of customer experience. We want to look at the millennial factor, and I think that it's important that all businesses, and I know that this is a buzzword that people like to talk about, but they're not a unique species within our society. I have two children who are in this millennial category, and I do a lot of listening about what their buying behaviors are and how they perceive things. And several of the public relation agencies within our business and some of the writers started to ask me questions about this particular influencer because they're having an impact on retail, they're having an impact on restaurants, they're having an impact on all aspects. And so statistically, we have over 75 million millennials who are now in a position of financial influence. And their opinion matters because it ties to the financial components of all businesses. There's a change in values, and there's a different level of expectation or a tolerance for some things that baby boomers might have a greater tolerance for. They might say, well, my expectations were a little bit different. And so this number is now exceeding the number of baby boomers within our society. And so whether it's a school or a restaurant or a retail environment, the customer experience is another term that I'm hearing on a regular basis. And the customer experience includes many different things, But one of the key things, and it always comes in the surveys that organizations make, is it's the appearance. It's the experience that they're having is the facility clean? Is the restroom clean? Do we have an icky factor going on? And then all of a sudden, these things begin to surface on social media sites. And so I think it's important to respect the millennial consumer. I think it's something that we have to identify. And I have a clear understanding of what dirt looks like, and people sometimes will ask us, well, what is your definition of clean? We can certainly get scientific, but I think the definition of clean is really the absence of dirt. And so if we can see it, we don't need to measure it scientifically. And so this is an important thing to identify as these trends begin to move. A lot of businesses are getting caught and they're not addressing this specific issue. Then a blame game occurs, and I don't think that that's the right way to address it. I think it's really an issue of looking at what is the image, what is the health condition, where are we as an organization, and what is our commitment to these, what we would refer to in our business as cleanliness outcomes. So there's lots of data and information that's produced by our association. Procter & Gamble has several papers that became points of survey data. When we went to publish the value of cleaning white paper, which is available on Procter & Gamble's website, there's a lot of survey data and citations there. And so if anybody on this call wants a copy of the survey, or if you're looking for specific information, it covered everything from image enhancement to some of the scientific components, and it looked at, again, the experience that consumers were having. Now, cleaning is viewed by many people as a cost, and some people view it as a necessary evil. We believe that cleaning is a double-edged sword. It has a cost, but it also affects profitability for organizations because words travel pretty quickly, and some people are more reactive than proactive. But what we see is that cleanliness, the image, the health experience, the sanitation component, the compliance component, when you put all the pieces together, cleaning actually generates revenue for many organizations. We also have to be conscious of the fact that there's a cost associated with the labor and the products and everything that goes along with having a clean, healthy, safe facility. But today's millennial consumer, or what we refer to as the modern buyer, is clearly in control. And they're in control with dollars. They're in control with where they spend, how they spend, and we're seeing it. I had somebody that was talking to me about restaurants, and they said, there are some of the chains of restaurants who are struggling to attract millennials. And so it really comes down to a number of factors, but their perception becomes our reality as entrepreneurs, as managers, as stakeholders within the businesses that we operate in. These insight surveys I find fascinating, and I collect a lot of them, and Procter & Gamble dedicates a lot of time and information to getting consumer feedback, and that feedback is actionable. The feedback certainly can be ignored, but I don't ignore the feedback because it represents what we refer to as the voice of the customer. And so when people talk about cleanliness, and a lot of white-collar influencers may not want to discuss it, but I think that everybody knows what dirt looks like when it's in a facility and then somebody starts to file complaints or it shows up on social media. So we see it as appearance-related, odor-related, and then product-related, things like hand soap, paper products in a restroom as an example. We also know that people have this customer experience where there's this expectation. We also know that in all types of facilities that 50% of complaints regarding the customer experience is related to the restroom. And a lot of organizations have spent the last 5 to 10 years focusing on the products, the appearance, what is that experience when it comes to commercial cleaning in these restroom areas, and then making sure that we're focusing on moving it from complaint to actually focusing on the compliments. And so it's not really an issue of getting into the weeds. It's a matter of looking at the management structure of what tools we have to offer, What is the actual structure? Are there standards? Are there regulations? What do our systems look like? And then how do we actually measure what that outcome is? And most of our clients looks very specifically at what is the actual outcome. So the paper itself was outcome-based. We also understand that cleaning represents anywhere from 20, 25, 35. In some cases, we have some school districts where it's 40% of the actual cost of the maintenance and operations budget. And so we're very sensitive to understand that there's a balance between cleanliness factors and how much money is dedicated in the budget to get to doing that. And we're also trying to garner is positive feedback. And we perform inspections in federal government hospitals and different types of facilities. And what we're looking for is positive feedback, where if we do a survey, did we get compliments on the image, the appearance, or the customer or occupant experience? When we look at the statistical data of cleaning organizations, regardless of the type of business, whether it's a large university or whether it's a restaurant or whether it's small business, and I'll give you some statistics, what we're looking at is that labor is the most dominant component of cleaning. If you take the labor and the benefits, it could be anywhere from 70 to 90% of the cost. Then the product component, which can be paper products, hand soap, equipment, chemicals, all the tools that we use, usually represents anywhere from 8 to 12% of the total budget that's directly related to cleaning and sanitation. The chemical piece usually represents less than 1%. It's a small percent of the total budget when it comes to actual cleaning. So what we're looking for is we're not looking to rush cleaning workers. We're not looking to kill cleaning workers or the people that are providing these services. What we're looking for is we're looking for products, tools, and we're looking for performance characteristics of the chemicals. We're looking for products that are used for consolidation, standardization, that are multi-use products. We also want to make sure that it's the right product for the right type of application and the right type of substrate, because all of you on this call have different types of buildings, you have different types of surfaces, you also have different types of building occupants, and some building occupants make more messes than others. And so the performance characteristic of a specific chemical, and then looking at a chemical that does 5 things instead of just doing one, also helps lower the cost and demystifies or simplifies the cleaning work that we're doing when we're dealing with a multicultural workforce. This is a graph from a survey that Procter & Gamble did, and it's featured in the paper on the value of cleaning white paper. It's on page 14 and page 15. And so this was about image enhancement and customer satisfaction. This paper was produced several years ago. Customer satisfaction has now been translated into the term customer experience. And so this survey was done with over 1,000 respondents between the age of 18 and 64. And it was performed in quick-serve restaurants. And the respondents came back with some interesting data that we felt was an important citation. And so without getting into great detail, what you see here is that these are what we would classify as highly touched objects or areas where contamination could occur. And without getting too icky, we'll talk a little bit about bacteria and that in the next couple of slides. But these surveys tell us that in the survey process, whether it's a health club, a restaurant, no matter where it is, cleaning always appears to come in number 1, number 2, number 3. And so product standardization, multi-use items, focusing on area types within your facility. The area types that we primarily work with our clients is what are the high impression areas like lobbies or sitting areas or in a restaurant, the tables, the floors, the glass, what we can see. So it doesn't have to be overly complicated or scientific. What is it that we see? What is it that the customer is looking at? And so restrooms are another key area to all businesses. And then what we also look at when it comes to restaurants and people with break rooms and cafeterias or food processing areas is we classify those as high-risk or very high-risk areas. So we always look at high-risk areas, high-impression areas, areas with highly touched objects when it comes to addressing cleanliness. So we don't have to have an A+ across the board everywhere, but we do have to focus on the areas that customers are focusing on. The one thing when I talk to business owners and people who have had negative experiences, once a facility begins to get dirty, what happens is that it now becomes a build-up versus taking care of it on an ongoing basis. And now my cost is increasing. I'm losing potential revenue. Customers are beginning to talk. Now it's starting to go viral. And so the first impression is the lasting impression. And it's very difficult to recover from a negative first impression. And when I look at losing revenue, we don't lose customers 100 at a time. We lose customers one at a time. And then that one customer talks to 5 people. They talk to 5 people. They talk to 5 people. And so one of the things that we counsel managers, business owners from a public relations position when they have a negative if the Board of Health comes in and something gets published negatively or there's social media that's coming up negatively is not to be defensive. I think the first thing is to make sure that you're very proactive and that you're focusing on the fact that this is essential to the customer experience. And so the proactive position, no excuse making, not blaming custodians or frontline workers, but actually looking at the management structure. How are we measuring it? Are we performing inspections? Do we have corrective action? Do we have the technical training components? Are the products and the equipment that we're using, are they performing well? Are the dispensers in a restroom functioning well? Those are all the things that we would look at if we were to do a gap analysis to determine if the cleaning department is meeting the requirements of specific standards that help us get to that type of outcome. And so first impressions are always lasting impressions, and they're very difficult to change. They're also very expensive if you have to hire a public relations agency to come in and try to change that perception in a social media environment. The revenue component. If we know that cleaning is the number 1, number 2 area of interest in customer surveys, then it has to be our number 1 and number 2 focus when it comes to managing our facility. There are also cost silos in the commercial cleaning industry that are related to the lack of structure or the lack of awareness. Everybody has a different perception as to what their definition of clean is. And so because I've been in the business for a while, my awareness is very high. I'm always looking at floors. I'm looking at what's happening within the facility. Is the floor clean? Is it shiny? Is it dirty? Is there debris? Is the trash can overflowing? Are there fingerprints all over the door handles and the mirrors? But the financial silos here are things like slip fall, which begin at like $50,000. And we perform expert witness work for Procter & Gamble in this area. So cleanliness or having a clean floor is very important to the slip fall component. Then we look at what is the frequency. We look at the standard operating procedures. We look at the actual training. And so then you start to come back, and then is there going to be an outbreak? Are we going to have an outbreak of C. diff in a healthcare facility, or is it a MRSA, or is it a SARS? What does an outbreak look like? If I'm in a daycare center, we might have something like hoof and mouth disease. Whatever it is, these outbreaks are very costly. The remediation is costly, and we have to get back to the basics of how do we clean, what are we cleaning with, are we measuring it, and are we getting the positive outcome to answer the right questions? Some of you on this call may be in quick-serve restaurants or small types of restaurants or large food processing. The last thing we want is a visit from the Board of Health because somebody filed a complaint and then have poor ratings or be on Channel 9 News. Whatever it is, what we want to do is avoid that on the front end so that we're not going through a lot of expense on the back end. And then the other trigger that we look for is we look at safety issues. These are safety related to the way that the facility is managed. Clean, healthy, safe facilities are always facilities that are not only noticeable visually, but also ways in which we can reduce any types of claims like workers' comp claims, or if I'm using too harsh of a chemical, or if we don't have the right procedures, are we injuring people, within that are performing the work itself? Okay, reputation. There's 87 billion square feet of commercial buildings in America. There are some interesting statistics on this, and this information is published by EIA, which is the Energy Commission within the U.S. market. When you break out the numbers, we're a nation of small businesses, and therefore we're a nation of small companies. There's a lot of entrepreneurial behavior. We also see that 75% of the 87 billion square feet of commercial buildings are 15,000 square feet or less. And a lot of small businesses have a lot of different things going on. It's highly competitive. It's a zero-sum game when it comes to business. Amongst the businesses, sometimes small businesses may not have the structure, may not have the information that they need in order to have a cost-effective cleaning system or a cleaning program. And so within these 87 billion square feet, because we study the commercial space, there are over 13 different unique market verticals. And so these are everything from acute care to long-term care to restaurants, health clubs, large commercial buildings, airports. It's all over the board. As you're driving down the road, you can see that if it's got, 4 walls and a restroom, our industry services it. And so each of the buildings has a unique requirement. And then the weather has an impact on the amount of soil. The occupant has an impact on the type of soil. The types of floor surfaces that an architect puts in a building has an impact on the products that we use, and it also has an impact on the soil conditions and the total cost of the budget. And so everything that we touch has something related not only to the cost and the performance, but also protecting the reputation. And as a small business owner myself, I know that when we look at it, reputation is everything, and integrity is everything. And so I know that cleaning has a cost, and I know that it's not always the top of mind as it relates to running an organization, but I can tell you that it is the top of mind within your customer base, which represents your revenue stream. And I listen to people make comments all the time. Sometimes they don't know what I do or what industry I'm in, and when I listen to the comments, I just kind of make a mental note. And so reputation in business is everything. With the social media that we have available today, everybody is transparent. So it's not an issue of doing the right thing. It's an issue of making sure that we're focusing on customer-centric satisfaction and making sure that that customer experience is always positive. Okay, I know this is kind of an icky picture, but that's okay. There's a paper that was put into the value of cleaning. It's called BMC, or Biomed Central. And this particular paper focused on pathogens and how persistent they were on inanimate objects. I know these are big words, but inanimate objects are your cell phone, the mouse, the keyboard, the tabletop, the door handle. And so here we've got what we call HTOs, and highly touched objects is a tribal term within long-term care facilities and acute care hospitals. But it's also been translated into cleaning for health positions. And so flu season is coming up, and a lot of people are focusing on hand sanitizers. They're washing their hands. But what we know from the paper is that these pathogens can live on inanimate objects anywhere from 1 hour all the way to 12 to 16 months. And that paper certainly is available, and the information certainly is interesting, but instead of having an organization where the structure is based on random cleaning or allowing workers to determine what it is that they're cleaning, if we can direct it towards highly touched objects, then the facility is going to be not only cleaner, but it's also going to be safer and it's going to be healthier. And so we have really 4 triggers that we look at is cleaner, safer, healthier, and then the last trigger is the financial pieces, is how much is that going to cost. And so here you see a list of door handles and seats and partitions. You can tell that this list is specifically for restrooms. There are also other lists that we use, and sometimes when we're training a multicultural workforce, we'll actually take pictures of the highly touched objects that are specifically in that facility so that they can identify those, put them into a wall chart, laminate those. Procter & Gamble also has a set of standard operating procedures which give you the succinct step-by-step procedures for cleaning certain area types as well. But highly touched objects are part of the thing I see people avoiding, and so we can clean those using an EPA-registered disinfectant. We can use microfiber cleaning tools. There's a lot of different types of systems that can be assembled, but this is something that many of our clients are now focusing on, and they're actually training their workers on what the top 10 or top 20 highly touched objects are within their facility. Okay, this is an example on the right of what the icons would look like. And so standard operating procedures are critical to getting the right outcome. It's like baking a cake. What do we do first, second, third, fourth, and last if we want to have great cake? And so these wall charts are invaluable. They also come in multiple languages. They also talk about the need for personal protective equipment, the safety component. And so we focus on standard operating procedures because that's how we get to the outcome. We also look at what were the systems. And so if we've got Procter & Gamble chemical, and that's one piece of the system, then what are the actual cleaning tools that we use? Do we have the right type of bucket? Do we have the right mop? If we're using mechanization like a pressure washer, or if we're using a floor machine or an auto scrubber, do we have the right tool for the right application? So we also understand that in looking at the workers of the cleaning industry, that there are over 3.2 million workers within our business in multiple types of verticals. We've tried to focus on worker safety. We want to use products that are effective but also have sustainability characteristics. We also look for products that are intuitive, that are color-coded so that workers can identify them by a fragrance or by a specific color. And we want to make sure that the system is assembled by management and that we're focusing on the right type of, again, outcome. We want to make sure that we focus on any type of government, federal, or state regulations, and then we want to focus on the compliance characteristics as it relates to safety. And so what we want to focus on in summary here, because this is my last slide, is that we're never, ever quick to say, well, the janitor didn't do this or our housekeeper didn't do that. We really take a look at the actual management commitment and the structure is do we have the right protocols, chemicals, training? Are we performing internal inspections? What are our inspection scores? Are they measurable? Do we have a corrective action platform? And is management walking around looking? Are they identifying things that a customer may see, and are they seeing that through the lens of the customer? Okay, that concludes my section of the webinar, and now I'm going to turn it over to John Carroll, the Manager of Business Outreach at Yelp.
Great, thank you, Dave. So when it comes to ratings and reviews, there are really three cogs that all turn at the same time. And the first thing they will notice is it all starts with a small business, right? Consumers now more than ever are able to access information about local businesses, whether or not that's going online, asking friends, going to Facebook, going to other social media sites. Now more than ever, consumers are able to find and kind of identify and set their expectations before they even walk through the doors. What's interesting is about 93% of consumers are turning to online review sites before they're going and shopping with a local business. And one of the reasons for that is this kind of social proof or the wisdom of the crowd. One of the things that Dave said that I really liked was focusing on kind of those like highly visible areas within a business and making sure that those are the things that really shine, because those are the things that help set expectation. But you have other parts and components of your business that also set expectations. So your marketing materials, what are the colors that you're using? What is the design component? How, what does that design make the consumer or viewer feel? Even your in-store displays or your menus, the promotional materials, if you have radio, if you have TV commercials, the way you set up your Yelp listing, all these help set this expectation for consumers. And then when you walk in that door for the very first time, that consumer is doing this immediate mental equation of how well does this business measure up to the expectations that they've set. If you send out super cleanly designed, promotional materials, or your Instagram profile looks really clean and really complicated and really sophisticated, and you walk into a business and it's just a complete and total mess, it's dirty, it's disorganized, that's a cognitive dissonance moment. That's a moment where the consumer expectation does not match the reality of the situation. And it's in that moment where you start seeing negative reviews come from, right? Because you expect one thing and you get something completely different. So what consumers are doing now more than ever is they're going online and they're looking to their peers to find out, what was your experience here? Rather than the kind of word of mouth of the olden days. I think, Dave, before bringing up your two millennial children, it's like before that time, what were people doing? They were asking around. They were asking within their community. Now, people, rather than hearing the voice of one person, are getting the voice of hundreds of people simultaneously. And that way, those outliers or those special relationships or, that bias is much more mitigated because you have a much larger sample size. And what that all feeds back into is, at the end of the day, what the small business is doing, what they're putting out there, and the expectations that they're setting with consumers is leading into this feedback loop that's then driving the two other things. Like Dave said, if you're getting feedback, you can't ignore it. You have to pay attention to it, and you have to act on it. So if you're seeing things in your, in your business, or you're having people come up to you and say, the bathrooms are dirty or whatever it might be, you're not going to be surprised if you don't address that and that pops up on your social media profiles, because your social media profiles are just an extension of your word of mouth reputation, right? Yelp is just word of mouth online, but amplified. When it comes to what you can actually be doing with your ratings and reviews, obviously most consumers are going here. I'd be surprised if there were people online who weren't using review sites or doing research online before spending money with a local business. But what's different with a review site compared to other sites is that most people are there because they intend to spend money. This isn't, I'm doing research. Do I need to go to a chiropractor? Do I need to go to a doctor? This is, I've already decided that I'm going to go to a chiropractor. I've already decided that I want to go out to dinner. I've already decided that I need to, go shopping. It's simply, where am I going to go? So we know that 82% of people who are on a review site, specifically on Yelp, we know 82% of visitors to Yelp are there because they intend to buy a product or service, and that purchase intent is really, really high. So 89% of those folks are making a purchase within the week. What's nice is 85% of Yelp users are looking for a business that they can visit multiple times, and about that same percentage of people are looking for a business that they can share with friends. So exactly the same way that Dave said, if you have somebody who comes into your business and they notice that it's dirty, you don't lose a customer 100 at a time, you lose them one at a time. And you have, that social sharing, same way you're building your reputation quickly, positively, you also have the potential to lose face and lose reputation equally quickly if you don't address these things. We always like to think of negative reviews as kind of the canary in the coal mine. 73% of consumers who have left a negative review have already tried delivering that news via traditional customer service channels. So they've already tried to go up to a manager. They've already tried sending an email. They've already tried, picking up the phone and calling the business to get things resolved or going to the front desk. But what we find is that they've been disappointed. So this is really them halfway out the door and their last kind of ditch effort to make things right. It's true that happy customers often spend more, return more, and share more about their great experience because oftentimes, that customer loyalty component is not very frequently up for grabs. It's if you're a dental office, I talked to a lot of dentists in my outreach work, and it's one of those things that typically it's a change that you only make if something went seriously wrong or if you move, or if your old practice, shut down or whatever it might be. But customer loyalty is a very, very valuable thing, and somebody's using a review site because they are looking for a new business to be loyal to. So with your review sites, the same way that you clean up and your online presence as a whole, the same way that you clean up the inside of your business, you need to clean up the outward-facing sides of your business too. I found these stats pretty interesting because they focus a little bit on the negative, but I think what people miss is that overwhelmingly review sites and Yelp in particular tend to be very positive. 80% of reviews on Yelp are 3 stars or above, which are positive reviews. There are actually more 5-star reviews on the site than there are 1, 2, and 3-star reviews combined. But that being said, a negative review does have a serious impact on a business. 4 or more bad reviews can actually take up to 70% of a business's potential customers away. One of the things that's really important with negative reviews is actually responding to those, and we'll get to that in a second. If you are looking at a business online and you see that it has a great reputation and you see that other people in the industry also have a great reputation, you're not looking for how that business performs when things are fantastic, right? You're looking for how they perform and how they act when things go wrong, because and you have the expectation that they're going to do a great job, but you also want to know, heaven forbid something went wrong, how are they going to behave? And will they have my back, and will they really come through for me? So a lot of times, and I know I'm guilty of this myself as a consumer, I look for businesses with great reputations, and then I look for consumers. I might search the reviews to find consumers who are looking for something like me. So, for example, if I'm looking for a brunch spot, I'll look for a restaurant that has brunch, and then rather than read through, 400 or 500 reviews that could be about dinner or lunchtime or whatever it is, I look for reviews related to brunch. And I look through the great ones, and then I look through a couple of the negative ones to see, is this place noisy, or how does the business handle long wait times or something like that. And one of the things that's always really mollifying is if the business actually takes the time to respond to a review, and it kind of makes me feel like even if something goes wrong, they're going to take the complaint very seriously. Another interesting thing with negative reviews in particular is that when you look at the overall kind of online landscape, if you have 100 folks who are using a website, and this is actually a phenomenon that was first observed on Wikipedia. If you have 100 Wikipedia users, 90% of those users will only go to a site to read content. 9 of those folks will go to the site and actually, make a couple edits to the content. Maybe they'll add a Oxford comma or something like that. And then only 1% will actually take the time to create new content. So when you think about the principle, it's called the 1-9-90 principle. That means that only 1% of the population who is using Yelp will actually take the time to write a review on Yelp. And if you think about Yelp as in totality, we have over 100 million users on our mobile devices alone every single month. But since we were founded in 2004, we only have 135 million reviews cumulatively. So if one person is saying this, if one person is delivering your business feedback online, that means that there are probably 99 people who thought the exact same thing but didn't take the time to tell you. And I read this book, Hug Your Haters by Jay Baer, and it's a fantastic read. Recommend it if you haven't read it before. But one of the things that it says is, it's not the one-star reviewers who shut down a business, who close a business. It's the people who walk away saying, I wouldn't go back there. It's the one-star reviewers who love you enough to tell you why they hate you. And those are the people that you should be thinking that you should be appreciative of. One of the best ways that you can stay on top of your online reputation and kind of see what's being said out there With the review sites, most of them you can claim and manage an account on there, and you can set up alerts when people write reviews for you. If you want to do that on Yelp, you just go to biz.yelp.com. With other review sites, it's a very similar process. There's typically a business owner login and portal. And like Yelp, most of them are free for business owners to manage their listings. Another great way is to set up a Google alert for your business. A Google alert is a tool that's offered by Google. You can put in your business name, and you can put in key search terms, and then you'll kind of get a daily digest, if you will, of all of the mentions of your business online. And that way it's automated. You don't have to go out there and dig, and you're not paying a PR company or a social media monitoring company to do it for you. Google will send you kind of the top list of most trafficked or most important mentions for your business. And this is a great way to really passively listen to your business online. And you can set it up that you get it a couple times a day. You can get it once a day. Whatever it is, I always recommend once a day. And it's good even if it's not just your business name. Me personally, I have a Google alert for my name. I have a Google alert for John Carroll Yelp. I have a Google alert for our brand name Yelp, and then I have one for Yelp and then online reviews to see if there's anything that we're saying out there that is getting picked up. So you can set up multiple. It's totally free, and you just go to alert.google.com to set that up. As far as getting more reviews, this is a really common question that we hear from business owners, and it's there is a very long tail when it comes to review sites. When it comes to home and local services and cleaning, Yelp is the most popular. But when it comes to different industries, there might be slight variations in ranking, but you would rather spread yourself an inch wide and a mile deep as opposed to a mile wide and an inch deep. So make sure that you're focusing on a few resources that are really important to you, and make sure your customers know exactly what those resources are and exactly where they should be going to engage with your brand. A couple ways that you can do that include things like your link to, if you're engaged on Yelp, Facebook, and Twitter, put links to all three of those things in your email signature, put them on your website, make them visible and let people know, put them on your receipts, put them on your follow-ups or your confirmations, put them on your business cards. Those are all really important things for people to know because you're letting them know kind of passively that these are the sites that are important to you and your business. Another great thing that you can do is, when you hear people asking, or when you have people come into your business for the first time, it's always good to ask them how they heard about you. Oh, are you a new customer? How did you hear about us? And regardless of what they say, always try to direct them to a site that you value. So if somebody says, oh, I heard about you through a friend, oh, did you hear about us on, did you check us out on Facebook first, or did you hear about our read any of our Yelp reviews? Oh, those are really important to my business. We love seeing things like that. And it's very different than shilling for a review at the end, right? You never want to ask a consumer directly for a review because, one, it's an uncomfortable experience from a consumer perspective. It's also an uncomfortable experience from an employee perspective, and it's proven to erode brand loyalty. You've worked so hard. New customer acquisition is a very difficult thing. It costs a lot more than retaining a customer. That's why we spend $500 billion a year on advertising and only $9 billion on customer retention across the globe. But when it comes to, keeping a customer, you would never want to erode their trust or their confidence in you by soliciting or shilling for a review. So I think that's one of the biggest pitfalls that we see, and typically that shilling for a review happens at the end. Never offer a gift card, never incentivize, nothing like that. You always want to make sure that it's happening organically, and you do that by addressing it at the beginning and having it passively out there that these are the sites and these are the tools that your business really leverages. The other thing that shouldn't come as a surprise, but great reviews start with great customer experiences and great customer service. A review that has the phrase great customer service in it is 5 times more likely to be 5 stars than 1 star. So it's extremely important that you are putting the customer first. And I think, as Dave said before, that you're not waiting to get that feedback, or that you're actually being proactive about managing the experience, not simply sitting around waiting for it or hoping that it comes to you. And that goes back into listening and learning from what customers are saying. It's listening to the feedback that you're getting in store or online. The same way that you have formal structures for your cleaning procedures and things like that, you should also have formal structures for bubbling up feedback internally. in order to get less feedback, you actually have to get more feedback. Le Pain Quotidien, which is a bakery chain, brought in a new head of client satisfaction and customer satisfaction, and her goal within her first year was to get 5 times more feedback than the year before. And in doing that, the year following, their feedback dropped significantly to the year before they started, because in order to iron out all of those wrinkles, in order to really sharpen the point to a really fine, well-honed point, you need to make sure that you know everything that's going on in your business and everything that your customer is thinking, because that's how you build that loyalty. One of the most important things, and I've said this a couple of times at this point, is responding to those reviewers. Take, for example, this review from Caprice. She actually checked into her hotel and wrote a 1-star review on her first night. There was actually a cleanliness issue, so definitely timely and makes sense for this webinar. But also, you'll notice that she went up to the front desk and they said that they couldn't get it sorted. So that this is, again, that kind of 7 out of 10 people who write a review online expect a response. But also, they've tried a traditional customer service channel as well. And in their response, the review, as Dave said, I completely agree, take the high road. Don't be argumentative. Don't be combative. The business owner reached out the very next day, and thank you for taking the time to Yelp at us while you were here. We agree that this is unacceptable, and we'll be in touch with you imminently. And they actually called her, and they laid out their plans to make everything right. They treated her as if she was standing right in front of them, raising this concern. And what happened on her 4th night, she actually upgraded her review to 4 stars from 1 star. It's their 4th night here, and I have to say the George has really turned me around. Someone called the day after I wrote my initial review, apologized, and laid out their plan for making things right. And true to their word, we've had very good service ever since. And it's that simple, right? Like, this is a channel that engaging with your reviewers is incredibly important. And what's great is this business did it publicly. So it's not only speaking to Caprice, it's speaking to the rest of the audience who's potentially coming to that page, deciding whether or not to do business with them. So a couple of tools and resources, because I oftentimes will get a lot of questions about Yelp and about online reviews, and people looking for other resources to follow up with. The first is managing your page. That happens at biz.yelp.com. That's our business owner's login. We have a blog where we cover a lot of these topics as well, so that's yelpblog.com, and then you just look for the business section along the top. Then we have a Twitter handle at Yelp for Business on Twitter. And then I think my favorite is our support center, which is searchable and dynamic. So you can get any of your questions answered at yelp.com/support. And then if you're already managing a page and don't have it quite yet, our mobile app for business owners, which is biz.yelp.com/support/mobile, puts all the functionality and page management in the palm of your hands.
Excellent. Well, thank you, John, and also to Dave for sharing your knowledge with us. This is Patricia Lynn at Procter & Gamble Professional, and we understand what clean can mean to your businesses. We have the trusted brands and products to help you make a noticeably clean first and lasting impression, as Dave has shared, and that really help you create the efficiency and savings by having your cleaning done right the first time. So, for example, you can see here our Spick and Span 3-in-1 cleaner does 3 jobs in one and actually combines 3 cleaners in one. We have really great partners like Quill.com who offer many cleaning solutions, including our P&G professional products. I would like to pass on to Nicole Giorango with Quill.com to tell you more. Thank you.
Thanks, Patricia, and thanks, Dave and John, for your great insights. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Quill.com, we are a national office products company that has been around since 1956. We have everything you need for your business with over 1 million products. So we carry your standard office supplies, the paper, ink, and toner, as well as cleaning and janitorial supplies, which includes a large assortment of the P&G professional products, plus break room supplies, technology, furniture, and much more. On top of our large assortment of products and brands, we also offer customers fast free shipping and everyday savings with coupons and free gifts. So for signing up for this webinar, we really wanted to give all the attendees this exclusive offer to save $10 on cleaning and janitorial supplies at quill.com. If you visit quill.com/cleaning, you'll be able to see our full assortment of cleaning and janitorial supplies for your business.
Great, thank you everyone. Now we've just got a couple minutes left here, so we'd like to hop into the Q&A portion of today's webinar. And as a reminder, if we're not able to get to your question here today, we will follow up with those after we close this session. And as soon as the Q&A session ends, you will see a brief survey on the right side of your screen. If you could please take the time to fill that out. We really do appreciate your feedback. It's very, very useful to us. So jumping right in here, Dave, it looks like the first question is for you. Other than those frequently touched objects you mentioned, is there anything I should have my employees spend more time on or be more vigilant of?
Well, management has to define the task and the frequency. And so how often should that particular area or surface be cleaned? And so I really don't like to leave it up to the interpretation of the worker. So if it's something that gets done daily, then with the frequency is 260 or 365 days a year, that gives me the frequency of the task. Then I have to make sure that they understand what the appearance expectation is. What should that tabletop look like? Or if I have debris underneath the legs of the table or the floor underneath the table is dirty. And if I have to, we just take digital photos and put a no symbol that no, that's not an acceptable appearance. People are very visual, and so you can certainly train them on the right SOP, the right type of step-by-step procedure, but ultimately they need to know what you want it to look like as an expectation. We all have digital cameras on our phones. We can certainly plop those into like a PowerPoint slide, laminate the card, and say this is the expectation. So what should it look like? What is the frequency of the task? What are the products, the performance characteristics of the products that we're using for that surface, that application, and then just making sure that they understand their role. And I know that commercial cleaning workers don't always make a lot of money. I understand that it's an entry-level position for many people, but thanking people for what they do and recognizing the people that are doing this hard work certainly goes a long way in employee retention and the quality of the work that they perform.
Great. And John, the next one here is for you. What do I do with a negative review?
A couple things that I hear from business owners when they're particularly successful in handling a negative review is, one, they unpack it with their team. They always bring it to their staff and dive into it, not with any, prejudice of, oh, well, this person must be wrong or my staff member must have really messed up. They just want to find out more about the expectation because I always tell people, think about the last time you called a 1-800 number or you called a hotline to a customer service hotline or called the waiter or manager over to the table. You didn't think that you were in the wrong when you were, doing that. So how do you put yourself in the shoes of the consumer, and how do you understand, where that disconnect between what you were trying to achieve and what they actually felt was? And oftentimes it's important to get your staff involved in that. Then from there, it's responding promptly to the review. If you respond to a negative review within 24 hours, it's 33% more likely that consumer will upgrade their review. So it's definitely one of those things that you want to be timely in addressing the concerns. And then be sincere with it. Always start with the thank you. Almost every single negative review starts with, there's almost always a positive in it somewhere. So thank the person for taking the time to write the review. Identify the positive and then lay out your plan to make things right. Not every time that somebody has a negative review or a negative experience do you want to invite them back into your business. Maybe they're not maybe they're not one of those customers that you really want coming back. Maybe they have unrealistic expectations. That's okay, but craft your response in a way that you're always taking the high road and that you're not coming off as combative or defensive. And I typically tell people that, one, your response should certainly never exceed the length of the review itself. But secondly, it should never really be more than 5 lines or so, because you could probably say everything that you need to say in that amount of time.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Unfortunately, we are up against the clock here, so thank you to all of our speakers. And on behalf of P&G Professional, Dave Frank, John Carroll, Nicola Giarango, Patricia Lynn, I would like to thank all of you for attending this webinar today, and we hope you enjoyed the presentation. As a reminder, the webinar recording and slides will soon be posted to www.pgpro.com/university. This concludes today's Procter & Gamble Professional Educational Webinar. Thank you.